Welcome to this episode of Mushroom Wonderland. Joining me today is Daniel Winkler. He was on a video last year that got pretty good applause.
I couldn't believe it, how many people were excited, probably because I ate every mushroom.
Yeah, we cooked everything up. It's called Lesser Known Edible Mushrooms with Daniel Winkler. Make sure to check that video out. But today we're meeting, it is early autumn in Western Washington. This is essentially Mushroom Wonderland that we're in right now.
It is Mushroom Wonderland, and especially right now.
This year we're off to an amazing mushroom season. There's a lot of mushrooms out here.
And they've been already out for weeks and weeks.
They have, yeah. Mushrooms like rain, so we've had late summer rains, really soaked everything. These cooler temperatures, mushrooms are going crazy. Chanterelles like I've never seen. I've never picked chanterelles like I have this year. So we're gonna go out today into the woods and we're gonna see what kind of mushrooms are growing out here. Daniel's gonna help to describe a lot of this stuff.
Welcome to Mushroom Wonderland.
So you just got back from traveling abroad, right? On the other side of the world?
I first went to the old country. I grew up in Munich, Bavaria, Germany, and I started mushroom hunting in the Alps. So mountain conifer forest. My grandparents and forefathers, they were mushroom hunting too. So I grew up maybe with a dozen edibles or so, you know.
That's a lot more than the average American.
Yeah, we never did a spore print, and we also ate the blusher, the Amanita rubescens.
Oh wow.
But you know, it was like, well, it blushes and that makes a clear distinction from the poisonous Amanitas.
Oh,
so
really?
that works fine.
How are the forests in Germany? I've always wondered, like I have this fairy tale idea, you know, obviously my channel is kind of inspired by this like enchanted, dark forest, fairy tale kind of thing, and that's what I think of, like the Black Forest or like Germany being.
Yeah, so being out here in Washington, Western Washington lowlands, the plantation forest is a good example. So there is basically no old growth left. And the old growth, if there's some left, it's just mountain forest where the trees don't go so big. So growing up in Germany, you're not gonna see a fir with like 5 feet diameter or 6 feet diameter. They can grow to that size, but it's just not happening since centuries. Low elevation is especially beech forest, beech and oak, which we have very little here. But you find a lot of good mushrooms with beech and oak. And then if you get into the middle altitudes, into hilly mountain countries, then you have, of course, conifers, you have fir, pine, lots of pine, true fir, and spruce in the mountains. And they planted spruce everywhere because it grows the fastest. So there's spruce plantations all over, and the king bolete loves the spruce. It's also called in German the spruce bolete.
What do you guys call bolete? Steinpilz?
Steinpilz, yes. And Stein is stone, Pilz is mushroom, and the reference is, I always as a kid thought, because it looks like a stone, you know. But like the reference is because it's so firm. The young king boletes are just incredibly firm for a mushroom, and I think that's what is claimed. But you know. Whatever people
could look like a brown rock too.
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes when
I know. In Austria, they call it the Herrenpilz, which means the master mushroom, because you were supposed. You can't pick that. That's just for the aristocrats who run the show.
Like we call it the king.
Right.
It's kind of like that. It's
well,
the king
I think it's the king of mushrooms, but the master mushroom is the reference that as a commoner you were not supposed to eat it yourself.
Gotcha.
You know, hold these
reserved for royalty.
Right. Yeah. You can pick mushrooms in my forest, but this mushroom you gotta give me.
What's your favorite mushroom to eat?
It is the king bolete.
The king bolete? Me too. I think it's gotta be my favorite. It's such a short window that you get them in a year.
Yeah, you gotta and you gotta work on it, because especially here, if you live in the Seattle area or in the lowland of the Pacific Northwest, you gotta figure out where you can find them. And in the first years when I moved here in '96, it took me years to figure it out. And, you know,
they're rare in the lowlands.
You gotta go in the mountains, you gotta go to the coast, or you gotta find your spruce.
You find a little patch around here.
With suburbia, oak, spruce, fir, and of course we have the fiber king, the chocolate king, that grows with Douglas fir. So in these plantation forests, you can find some kings. There's a cat on a leash.
It's a cat
Interesting.
on a leash. That's a first.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, don't eat our mushrooms, okay? And
anything goes in this forest.
yeah, but I mean, I'm so happy too when I find chanterelles and shaggy parasols. There's so many great mushrooms out there.
Shaggy parasols. I hope we see some of those today.
I hope so. It is the right in a park like that. Usually, that's
a little alder. They like that leaf stuff. That was like one of the first mushrooms that I ever found. Looked in a book. Looked at the pictures. I was almost sure. I took one to a mycological society and I asked an old man there, "Is this a good one?" And his eyes lit up and he was like, "Where are you finding these?" And I knew instinctively, do not tell him where your mushroom patch is. And I went home and cut it up and it turned orange and I was like, perfect. I cooked them up and they're one of my favorites. So I do hope we come across some of those.
And the cool thing is that they are safe to identify because of the color change. So these, I mean, this makes such a difference. Like the king bolete not having a color change in 99.9% of the cases. It's just so helpful. I think that's always a really important thing that mushrooms get popular. It's, of course, the taste is crucial, how long they stay edible, but also the other thing is how safe they're to identify.
So on the last video with Daniel, we went back to my house and cooked a whole bunch of different less common edible mushrooms. I wish we could do that today. There's not going to be enough time for that, but we are going to head into the woods and go see what kind of mushrooms are growing out here right now in early fall in Washington State and have Daniel help describe them for us and his experience with these mushrooms. Thanks for joining. Let's go into Mushroom Wonderland.
Thank you for joining Mushroom Wonderland!
That wet flower smell. So what are these?
Farinaceous. So here we have in Clitopolis. We used to call it prunulus, but DNA doesn't allow that name, and I forgot has a new name. And it's still the same species out here. And we got to be careful because there's a really dangerous look-alike, a Clitosobe, rivulosa. However, there's two big differences. The Clitosobe is white sport, and also it doesn't have the odor.
Oh, of the wet flower.
Yes, and this is...
What do you call that? Farinaceous.
Farinaceous. So it's a little bit cucumber. They say watermelon rind. I mean, what's the smell of watermelon rind? I don't know. But the cucumber thing. So the farinaceous is just one of these basic mushroom odors. If you use your nose, you gotta know. Yeah. You know, because it's so common. So many mushrooms, you find that in the tricholomas, Clitopolis, and it cooks away. So you don't need to say, oh, this is not, it's not a great odor. But it cooks away, and these guys also taste that way. So even if you don't pick it up with your nose, you can taste it. And yeah, as I like...
So these are brown sport?
No, these are pink sport.
Pink sport.
So this is
big
the big
difference.
And the Clitosobe are white sport.
White, yeah. Okay.
So at least the toxic lookalikes. And another difference is these guys are out in the woods, and the Clitosobe is usually in grass. But here, right on the edge of the grass, both could show up. And so the rivulosa, the Clitosobe rivulosa is much rarer, and these guys are also bolete indicators. I mean, it's really a unique odor, the farinaceous, and then you got to bring them home in a way that they still look okay.
They get bruised.
Because if you have your basket bullies like chanterelles or boletes, these guys gonna be smashed.
Good point.
And you don't want to cook them anymore.
Do you like to eat those ones?
I love them. They're really good. There was even a competition in California. I think Michael Woods writes about that, and you know, where people didn't know which mushroom it was, and it beat the king boletes. So they have a really good taste.
Different texture.
But you never find 10 pounds, you know, you never get a meal for 5 people so far. Okay, cool. So and there here we have some other white stuff. But this is, looks like there gotta be a cone down below, right? Yeah. I think this is Strobilurus trucillatus or one of them. There you see how they're beautifully lined up. And this was the most common mushroom in 2022 when we had no mushrooms.
Oh, on
and
iNaturalist.
these guys were ever. And on iNaturalist, these are like the most commonly reported mushrooms in the Pacific Northwest. And my hypothesis is that everybody reported it in 2022 because there was nothing else.
That could be.
I mean, they're easily to spot.
They're so common.
Wherever there's Douglas fir cones, these guys show up.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're beautiful. And actually there's a double-sized one in Europe, which is called...
And they eat it. Did I read it? I read it in your book, I think. Or
and I have never eaten it yet. I've looked in the Alps for it, but I never never felt secure enough that or found enough of them that I gotta eat them.
another. Oh, this is on a stick.
Oh.
Some kind of a
Philina, yeah, with the hairy. This is thing I so often find in the tropics. You know, these dark brown stems that turn to yellow with bigger caps.
They're super tough too. They're like really durable. Wow.
So this is a nice little grouping here of a Swillus, a jack, and we have Douglas fir forest here, and no scales on the cap, so that's probably the fat jack. But to be really sure that it is the fat jack, you want to look on the underside. So here, if you turn it over, yeah, see these pores, quite irregular. For some Swillus are much more geometrically arranged, and then brown staining, which is also an important feature. But the most important to be sure about this guy is when cutting the stem base. That was cutting too much away. But we should have a turning blue greenish here. See it happening?
Yeah. Yep.
So this is the fat jack, Swillus caerulescens or cerulescens, Caesar or Caesar, who knows, right? The Romans are long dead. But you see the blue staining, and that's so helpful for identification.
Definitely.
So this is one of the most common Swillus here, especially in the moist part of the Pacific Northwest with Douglas fir. And brings good material to the frying pan. It's to enjoy these mushrooms. So in the old days, everybody only said you gotta dry them, and if you dry them, then you can use them. Because if you put this thing in a frying pan, it's just mush. Yeah. It's sad. Taste, there is taste, but the consistency is not there. So the way to enjoy these guys is, well, first there shouldn't be king boletes around because they're never gonna outdo the king boletes. That's just not happening.
Right.
It's just they're not king boletes, but they have a nice bolete taste. And what you do is dry frying. So you put them in the pan without any oil, without any butter. So you slice them up, and of course, if the pores are oldish or there's a lot of pores, you get rid of them. But if they're young, the pores usually have the most taste. And then you do your dry frying, and once they start sticking to the frying pan, then you add your butter or oil. But you know, butter, it will always taste better than oil, right? But then you can enjoy these guys, and then you don't, you know, of course you have chanterelles or king boletes, they can't compete with them.
Do you dry fry all mushrooms?
Well, if they're wet, yes.
Okay.
If they're soaked, always, and otherwise, if they've been in the fridge for a week or 2 weeks, then they're too dry to dry fry.
Yeah.
So I base it on the water content, but like if I keep this guy for 2 weeks in the fridge and it's still not, well, I wouldn't. But theoretically, once they're dry enough, they will burn without any oil.
Yeah.
They get just too dry.
They carbonize rather than caramelize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta get that line. They carbonize.
Yeah, they turn black. That's not a good thing.
No, you
we
don't
want
want
golden brown. Yeah.
Right. But the dry frying makes an enormous difference for old soggy chanterelles, for example, and it does make it for even great young Swillus.
So yeah, kind of a slow reaction, but definitely blue now.
Yeah, very blue, and the browning of the pores, so easy to identify. We have so many Swillus species, maybe 20 or 30 out here.
Yeah, these pores are quite a bit bigger than like the Boletus edulis and stuff, right? I mean, these pores are like way different looking on a Swillus.
Yeah, they're quite removed in the Boletalis, in the order of the boletes. These guys are much closer to Crogomphus than they are to Boletus.
But a Crogomphus is also a gill bolete.
It's a gill bolete, yeah.
These are turning to gills over the course of evolution.
And then we have like Philoporus, which is another
bright
gill
yellow
bolete, which looks really bolete, but so
Gomphidius. There's a few.
Yeah. And the insidious Gomphidius, up there we have some Hypomyces. See, even the Hypomyces knows this is a bolete. So let's see. Yeah, so
these don't look that great. I mean, are these good specimens? This is about as good as they get. I mean,
no,
they're not very attractive.
Just because you're filming, I'm picking them.
I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't look at these and be like, yummy.
No, they're already, I guess a week ago.
Yeah, okay.
But since I talked about it, I'll take that home, and at least for the mushroom class, I'm gonna do after that. It's good to have these. Okay, so I'll take a couple with me for. And now I have to eat it too, right?
What'd you find? Some truffles?
Yeah,
Dark truffles?
Look at these. I don't know. That looks... Oh man, this gotta be... Maybe it's undescribed yet, right? We better take a sample.
Is it safe to nibble and spit everything?
Oh, every mushroom is safe to nibble and eat, right?
Oh
man, yeah. But it's gorgeous. I mean, if you don't know that this is dog poop, please put a subtext there.
Yeah, don't attempt this at home. We're trained professionals.
Well, there's usually not much ectomycorrhizal activity under these salmon berries. But
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Look
Whoa.
at that. This is crazy. Wow. Shaggy parasols in a complete witch
Wow.
ring. This is German. How we call it in
A
English?
witch ring. We call them fairy rings.
Fairy rings, yeah.
Whoa, look at this, look at
There's
this.
another one.
Oh my
Whoa.
gosh.
This is crazy. Somebody already kicked one over.
You call them witch rings in Germany?
Yeah, the fairy rings are witch rings.
This is where the witches were doing their spell. Whoa, this is a perfect circle. We got the witch ring. We call them fairy rings. I heard that this is created by fairies dancing in the middle of the night. And if you get caught in their dance,
They use it. It's their portal. They need the mushroom to provide the portal. You know?
Okay.
yeah.
I don't want no trouble. But I heard it's bad luck if you step in there. Have you ever stepped in the center of a fairy ring?
I never heard that.
No?
Well, you might end up in a different reality, which mushrooms can do to us, right?
Yeah. Well, I was like on a bad, I had a 10-year streak, just terrible bad luck. I put it together. One time I stepped into a fairy ring.
Okay.
Ever since then, I don't do it anymore.
Well, some of these fairy rings have a diameter of 100 feet, you know?
If you're having a bad life, you might just be walking through one every day.
So how do you undo the curse? I think that's the point.
I heard that you got to have a friend who gets you out of it. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, we had great luck because look at this.
These are amazing.
So many of them and in perfect condition. And so these are the gray shaggy parasols. So this is Chlorophyllum olivieri. Like all of the shaggy parasols, it gotta have a color change. See how it is reddening here, oxidizing red?
Yep.
Very important for identification because otherwise they look a whole bunch like poisonous amanitas. Fat stem base, a ring, white gills, white spores, and just the whole shape is like an amanita.
Yeah.
However, there's two really big differences. The one is the color change and the other one is the caps have scales.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Pacific Northwest, we do not have a single amanita that would have scales. They have dots, warts, whatever, patches on the cap, but they don't have scales. And what is a scale? A scale is tissue that is connected on one side and lifted up on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we have here.
And that's the shaggy part of the shaggy parasol.
That makes the shaggy parasol. And then the shaggy parasols all have a ring. And often it looks like a double ring. It has the upper part and the lower part.
Yeah.
And when they get a little old, it dries and you can move the ring around.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's young and fresh, it's too tight. So it needs to dry a little bit and then you can move the ring.
It's movable. I remember that being one of the ID features in the first book I ever had. Would say.
And then we have three species. We have the gray, the white, and
the brown.
The brown. So the brown one is often in the forest, not just in parks. And it's the stoutest of them all. It has a shorter stem. And when it's young, the bulb is really abrupt. It has a stepping bulb. But when they get older, it rounds more. Our most common here, wherever people are, is this Chlorophyllum olivieri, which is not called olivieri for being olive colored. That has nothing to do with the color olive, which we don't see in the mushroom. It's named for Monsieur Olivieri. Not Monsieur. It's an Italian name. So
a mycologist.
No,
Oh.
it's a invasive species. Came from Europe, and then we have a third species, which is the white shaggy parasol, Chlorophyllum. Help me.
Molybdites.
That's the toxic one, which is very rare here, luckily.
Yeah.
That has the green spores, which really makes a big difference. The third one, the white parasol.
Oh, Rhacodes.
Rhacodes.
Yeah.
And Rhacodes is much bigger. I mean, these guys can go up. I've measured one with 12 inches, but that's the record. But usually they go to 8 or 10.
Yeah.
And Rhacodes gets much bigger, but it's much rarer west of the Cascades. In drier areas, you'll find it east of the Cascades around houses too.
Oh,
so
interesting.
very likely that it's also an introduced species. Bruneum, some people get reactions. Most people not, but some do get a reaction. That's why we don't find these in trade. Now with the DNA evidence, it would be cool because you can cultivate them. They're saprobic.
Yeah.
So they are not root associated, they're not ectomycorrhizal, but they grow on biomass, and I actually transfer them to my yard. I take the stem base, I break it off, and I dig that into a spot that is similar, shady, moist, biomass, rich, and then they actually move in.
They grew in.
Not every spot, but you can just move them. And the easiest is with the stem base.
Yeah,
You have
okay.
the mycelium already there.
Yeah.
There's some resources here. So the mycelium then can invade the ground, and you'll get them in your yard.
So this is just leafy duff. These are alder leaves.
Right,
It's
and-
just
and-
well
And they
decayed.
take also cedar leaves, so they are very flexible. Compost is a great place. If you live in suburbia and you have an irrigated yard, if you have some irrigation close by, that helps too.
Look at that.
Yeah. So
Look at
this
that.
the young stage is
Rhizome.
the
Super rhizomorphic. These-
hyphamat here, and then also young, a drumstick, we call that too. And
Lollipop.
sometimes if you want to rather fry them gills down, you can put that in break off the base and then put it in a water glass, and it will open up for you. Takes a day or two. And then you can just fry it gills down, and it is so tasty. It's like steak. I mean, they have such a rich, meaty taste, and just gills down, oil, butter, and these guys take a lot of garlic. So I'm like my king boletes, I love garlic, and because the garlic might overpower them. These guys hold their ground. Lots of garlic, butter, oil. I mean, so tasty. And I hardly fry the backside. Maybe I turn it over for disinfection. And you gotta cook these guys, so they're supposedly toxic raw.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
So you can't turn them into a mushroom powder. At least we have not had any volunteers who would tell us what temperature of drying would render the toxicity harmless.
Wow.
But
okay.
that would be the thing, Maybe I've been speculating. I thought about putting in a book, but I should do more experimenting. It's like put it in a dryer and start out with a higher temperature. Let's say maybe give it 10 minutes at 180, and then see if that would. But I really don't like poisoning myself.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth it.
No. So that's
and when
the
you
thing.
find them fresh, it's like, well, just cook them up, right?
So when I
they
find-
don't survive the basket bullies that you talk
No,
about.
they don't. So what I do is these guys are pretty fine. I like eating the stems too. But when you have so many,
There's a lot here. They go way back into the woods over there.
So this I put back in the ground, might spread the mycelium, but the cap, they have free gills. So whenever you have free gills, it's really easy to break the stem off, like in Amanita. And then you have these patches here, and then you pile them like plates.
Stack them up, huh?
Stack them up, yeah. So and then you can really transport is easy. And you see that they're prime. There's no browning. When they get a little older, they get brown or so. And
These probably came up just in the last couple of days.
yes, I think. Maybe 3 days,
Man, yeah.
I mean, mushrooms don't really happen overnight as much as I wanna
Right.
believe it, but they take their time to grow. A stinkhorn, of course, is different, but it grows. So and then and here pile them up, and then at home just fry them gills down, and good.
See that orange reddish color.
Really important.
Personally, I mean, people might. Oh, look at that really young one. This is what it looks like, very young, and then the progression kind of went right along that line.
The nice ring, I mean, it's just.
I like these. I just break this head off of here and just cook them in garlic butter
Cut
like
in
that.
half.
Man, yeah,
And
you can
do
cut
the
them in
garlic
half.
butter, yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
just on a steak.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, and part of it is, this is steak for me. This is mushroom
You don't
steak.
eat meat?
I do eat meat.
Yeah,
and I love steak, but I don't love buying it. You know what I mean?
It's expensive.
I mean, no, it's also, my contribution. I mean, I'm already bad enough through my travel, and too much red meat is not good for us, There's a lot of scientific evidence. I love it, but hey, these mushrooms,
They
and
act
yes,
like meat.
the steak
yeah.
is much better with them on top, no doubt.
Yeah, and they grow in big troops like
Yeah,
this. Usually you can find a lot when you find them.
So and all perfect, no discoloration yet.
not a super long shelf life, I don't think.
No, you gotta deal with them pretty well. You know, when you, I would say 2-3 days in the fridge, no problem.
Yeah.
But they don't. Most mushrooms do not get better in the fridge, right?
Yeah.
You're just trying to slow decay down, and you know. Yeah, I mean that is just so nice finding these guys.
Yeah, these are some of my favorites for sure. I didn't bring a basket, so you might have to
I'll
carry one or two
take
for
them
me.
back to the car and then we can share. Hey, you brought me a nice bag of shanties, so
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
Oh, there's a nice little bug on that guy. These guys get pretty buggy.
No, I haven't seen
bad,
more,
huh?
but here you see now the first traces of aging. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is basically, you know, then sometimes I just peel that away, but so now I'm not gonna pick the bigger ones. I'm gonna, you know, I've eaten many of these these shaggy parasols in a state where I can see there's already a little bit of discoloration.
Dang, that one's really pretty. Look at that, how clean
I
and
mean,
pristine.
on the table we need some.
They don't smell like much at all to me.
No, but cooking they're such a rich umami taste. I mean, they're just yeah.
Really good mushroom.
So here I think I already can, if I break that off, I can see probably on the other side there's some discoloration already.
What's your take on leaving some behind for wildlife or for reproduction?
Yeah, but the most mushrooms I leave behind is the ones I don't find, I have to admit.
That's true. There's some out there. We know there's some out.
Yes,
and these have all dropped in
And
millions.
here now we can invoke, oh, this is an invasive species. I
Yeah,
gotta take
good
all
call.
of it, right? Yes, I mean, there's definitely mushrooms. If we were not coming from a fungophobe culture here, a mushroom fearing society, we would have actually protected mushrooms. Like all the European countries have a red list of mushrooms, and there will be a bunch of what we like to eat on there. And that has to be respected. But we don't have that list here, and this species is one you do not have to worry at all because it's invasive.
Yeah.
And it's so abundant. I mean, they fruit in spring, they fruit in the summer when there's rain, they fruit in fall. And so this is when I first moved to the Seattle area, you know, and I didn't have chanterelle places yet, and I didn't have king bolete places, but I found them all over suburbia, and, and you know, had all my patches all over town. And I mean, Kirkland, not you know, which has a lot of green space, and so I'm really grateful to these mushrooms. And
do they come back in the same spot? Maybe next year come to the same place and find them again?
And in 3 weeks here probably.
Yeah.
There might be another flush.
I saw a fruiting of them a month ago. They were all rotten and I was kind of disappointed, but here we are.
No, and there will
Nice
be another
fresh.
flush because the season is not over, and in spring too. And I mean, you know, it's so abundant, and it's usually when you start out going in the woods. You know, it's not in a healthy ecosystem. They're not part of it here in the Pacific Northwest. They're on the edge. You know, there's a lawn with machinery here. That's where they show up. But once you're in the forest, you don't find them anymore. Only along trails.
Rarely, along the edge of a trail, but I have seen them out kind of far out, but just alone. Not growing in these troops.
It's
kind of a rogue.
But like you go in the foothills of the Cascades, they're not there.
Good point.
It's with humans.
Yep, along the alder, along something that's been manicured or something. But what a cool find. Awesome.
Well, what will we find here? Little
Look at that.
Strobilurus. Oh, cool. See how hairy that is? That gotta be the earpick fungus. Oh, there's a cone. There's a cone.
Earpick fungus.
Yeah, the earpick fungus is a really cool guy. I mean, or is it a gal? I don't know. But you look under the cap and it has teeth.
Oh yeah, like a hedgehog.
Right, and in the old days, before the DNA revolution, everything with teeth was put together as the tooth fungi.
Yeah.
And DNA has revealed that these guys are actually related to Russula. Lactarius russula. So they're part of the order of Russulalis. And once I learned that, I thought, wait a minute, Russulalis, I better taste these guys. Because there's a lot of spicy mushrooms in the Russularis. Like in the Russula themselves, the brittle gills is really spicy ones. Lactarius has them. But also something like Bondasavia, which is this huge polypore-like mushroom in the Russulalis. Spicy. super spicy in the Pacific Northwest. Other places, you can eat it because it's a little spicy or not. On the East Coast, Bondasevia berkeleyi, for same guy, Miss Berkeley. And then also in Bhutan, they eat it. That spiciness thing, that got me. So I started here to, there's another one. I started to taste these guys. And lo and behold, not
spicy?
yet. Okay, now it's, ooh, spicy. Really spicy.
Really?
Yeah. It's like the Bondasevia really burns your tongue. I mean, hours later, it's like, ugh, what happened? So, also spicy. I have no idea if edible and what's the point. These guys are very small. So, it's not what I'm out here for.
Kind of rare, yeah. Auroscalpium vulgari, is that the right?
Commune? Vulgaris or commune? Vulgara? Yeah, probably vulgar.
Yeah.
And it turns out we have a different species here on the West
That's
Coast.
what I was thinking. It's probably not even that. It's probably
but
undescribed.
nobody has it described.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool though, growing right on a Doug fir cone. Do you find them anywhere else besides on a Doug fir cone?
No, not out here.
It's amazing to think how small that mycelial colony must be to create this big fruiting body.
Yeah,
I mean,
but on the other side, think of the biomass of the cone. you
Yeah.
know? And then 90%
dense.
is water in the
Yeah.
mushroom, you know. So, you know, if you try both things, then that thing is quite a bit heavier than the
Yeah, it
mushroom.
could be just packed with mycelium. All right, I gotta try it because Daniel did it. You know, I gotta see how
you don't
spicy this
trust
thing
me,
is.
it's spicy.
Oh, it's tough. It's really tough.
It's leathery, yeah, a little. But it takes quite a while.
That was a big bite. I did this with
And I'm not gonna...
Lactarius rufus, and I
Oh,
almost
man.
regretted it.
Yeah, that's the most spicy of Lactarius out here.
Why do they call this the ear pick fungus?
Ear pick fungus, yeah, because there's
Like a
in the old
Q-tip?
days.
Oh, okay, there it is. Yeah.
There it is,
There it
right?
is.
And it gets pretty intense quickly.
Okay.
The ear pick is like in India. They still have these little silver spoons where you go in your ear and you get the gunk out. Yeah.
Yep, I get it. It's
It's
they're kinda
spicy. Perfect little baby chanterelles. On the Pacific West, I usually try to wait a little bit, but hey,
Yeah.
for educational reasons,
That's why.
we picked them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, look at this nice forking specimen. Very cool.
Very nice.
And not much of an odor yet. So what's interesting, these chanterelles have an odor, apricot-like, fruity, but often it really kicks in once you have them in the basket and they get shaken around.
Oh, yeah.
And then at a certain point, oh, I smell my chanterelles.
They smell
So
kinda
nice. So the odor seems to be released through the movement. And these are pretty easy to identify. First because, and easier to identify is always a reference to a locality. Because there's places where there might be dangerous lookalikes, and we don't know that unless you have the local knowledge. So local knowledge is very important, but here in the Pacific Northwest, we have very few things that have the color tones of the chanterelles, that have that rubbery, firm consistency, you know? I mean, these guys are not fragile, they're firm, they're rubbery-like, and then they have these gill-like folds under the cap. These are still very young, and you see how irregularly they run down the stem. They're decurrent, but they don't make like a straight line like some of the lookalikes might do.
Yeah.
So they're very irregular how they run out the fertile tissue. This is the tissue that produces the spores. So rubbery consistency, that color, here a little pale yellow tan, but yellow orange tones. So very helpful and
very popular.
Oh, it's one of our best mushrooms. And this one, like, I can keep in my fridge for 3 weeks without a problem.
Oh yeah.
You know,
They're
and
tough.
they're tough and they hold their moisture well. And such a blessing to have. There's no place on this globe that has as many chanterelles as we do have because of the biomass, the size of our chanterelles.
Yeah.
Yes, the mud puppy in California, which is Cantarellus californicus, is
Those
a
are
little
big.
bigger, but you know, they're much more stout.
You call it the mud puppy
That's the popular name there. The
because
mud
they
puppies.
grow in the mud and the dirt.
And
They're
it
dirty.
splashes up and so on.
Yeah.
And they're oak associated there.
Bars
So-
are clean and pristine,
Yes,
huh?
and so
Beautiful.
many of them, and nearly every year we can rely on them.
Yeah.
So that is just such great stuff. Okay, so odor, fruity apricot, the folds, gill-like folds that are decurrent but uneven, the coloration, and then the rubbery consistency. And then some people claim, well, when you rip them apart, that they're, you know, this fibrous nature. But you can do that with a whole bunch of mushrooms.
It's true.
And like with chanterelles, I like to do that often. Instead of cutting them, I just rip them for frying.
Definitely.
Just
And when you use that in conjunction with the other keys, it's a good way to narrow it down. I mean, it's another feature that
so
you can kind of count on.
I don't know about anybody who got poisoned in the Pacific Northwest.
I can't eat them.
Chanterelles.
I can't eat them.
You're the only one I know.
They upset my stomach so bad.
They are, because there's so few people who can't eat them.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
like,
a shame.
I met more people with king bullets that say they can't handle them.
Wow.
At least like that's.
I'm meeting more and more people that can't eat chanterelles. I ate them for 20 years and then just really upset my stomach. I'll eat just like a couple tablespoons and I'll have to go to the toilet.
On some interesting prescription drug?
No, I'm just getting ultra sensitive. I'm like that with the coastal hedgehogs too.
So that's when I hear that. It's a different story, because I hear from people like, I've eaten matsutake for 20 years and now I can't anymore.
Yeah.
So that
it's a personal
an allergic thing builds up over time. But I have not met anybody who eating the first time chanterelles had a reaction.
I've never heard of that either. No.
Okay.
Sometimes the best way is to get off the main trail. Ah, lobster.
Look at that lobster, and somebody was digging around it. Interesting.
Uh-huh.
Now, human or animal?
But an animal, I would bet.
It's too soft. That was a human.
What do we got? Ooh.
Yeah, look, this is... Yeah, that's the trouble with lobsters, that because they can be so old, this guy could be around already for 6-8 weeks or so.
Yeah, they fruited a long time ago.
Yeah, they
there's another. So let's see this one.
Yeah, that might be better.
We came into looking for chanterelles, came into lobster mushrooms, a combination of two. That's really old.
And that's soggy too, but look at the colors. I just love these color changes. But yes, this is the stage where you should not be tempted to eat it.
No, don't eat rotten food. You'll get sick.
Rotten food. Rotten mushrooms is the most common mushroom poisoning.
There's more. So yeah, we just walked into a... Oh, I see a beautiful one under there, back there.
I don't see it yet. There it is. Oh yeah, that's a big one.
It looks like it's still sturdy.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Maybe you can help describe this for us.
Let's come out here. Look at, oh man, what a perfect specimen.
Perfect. Wow.
Look at that, how even orange.
Gorgeous.
I mean, you would think this is photoshopped, you know?
Right.
I would think, revealing too much of my how I work with my pictures. This is just so perfect. Wow.
So what'd you find here? What do we got?
Well, this is the lobster, and this is a very odd mushroom. I mean, evidently it's called lobster because of the color. It also can have a fishy odor, which I do detect. And this mushroom is actually a mold, basically, growing on another mushroom. So usually we do not eat any mushrooms with a mold because we don't know what this mold's doing. But with this mold, which is Hypomyces lactiflorum, which is a misnomer out here because it grows in other places also on Lactarius. And here it does not. Here it only grows on Russula brevipes group. And we don't know by DNA now, is it only one or there's 4 that are very close? Is it all 4 of them? But it grows only on the short-stemmed brittlegill, Russula brevipes. Old books advise to be careful because we don't know what the victim or the host is.
The host, yeah.
Yeah.
The victim, I've never heard of that one.
Well, it is the victim, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to be a host and look like that afterwards?
It got overtaken.
Like being skinned and whatever, you know?
Do you think that this secondary fungi is parasitizing the fruiting body or the mycelium? I mean,
it is parasitizing the fruiting body. And what I've heard or read is it's already on the primordium, on the tiny mushroom button. It's already on there. It's not like the mushroom grows and then comes
catches it or
the mold
something.
like in our fridge it would happen.
Yeah.
No, it's already right on the...
It's waiting. Yeah.
That's
why that would explain why every year
Yeah.
I'll find these in the same spot.
Right.
They're back
So
here again.
they are just here, and the Rusula has no chance. You can just fry it in butter and enjoy it. You gotta make sure that it is not rotten. So people get sick from it when it's old and rotten. And we found these specimens before that were already rotten, but it was very clear. But sometimes there's just pockets of rotten flesh in there.
Yeah.
So you want to cut that out. And then some people get an allergic reaction. But it can't be too many people. My wife does, but you
Wow.
can buy it on
I've never heard of
place
anyone.
market. And if many people would get that reaction, they wouldn't sell it at the market. Is my reasoning.
Right.
And then I mean, it's just, you know, it has this rich aroma, fishy aroma, firm structure. It's a special mushroom, and it does not exist in Europe or in Asia.
Oh, really?
So it's endemic to North America and then radiating down into Central America. It is a special mushroom. And I mean, just the color, you know.
So pretty.
And we have it out here often in July, August, you know.
Yeah.
When nothing else is out there. Forest can be already full with them. So then we step into the forest once we think, okay, the chanterelles should have arrived, which often is September, October. And these guys been there 2 months and rotting.
Yeah.
So it's really surprising. They handle dryness.
Yeah, they don't seem to mind it. I've been out here crunchy dry. No kidding.
Yeah.
60 pounds of lobster mushrooms came out of this forest in a dry
What
summer.
did you do all with that?
They got dried and packaged
Yeah,
and
yeah.
distributed through a mushroom buyer in the area.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this
So,
this spot's
I mean, this
really
is a real.
nice.
I gotta eat that one. That one is just so amazing. Cheers.
After touching those lobsters, boy,
Three times.
they
You smell
stink.
fishy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the rotten ones. That one. See, that's also the older they get, the more
It's just
fishy.
crazy orange. Look at that.
That's just perfect.
Wow. And there you can't even see the gills anymore.
No, it totally. So the gills couldn't even form. You know, it took already over.
What a great time in the
What a
woods.
great day. You
Yeah.
know, sunny
So-
and mushrooms.
Thanks for joining me in Mushroom Wonderland. Daniel Winkler. Keep your eyes open. Hopefully we'll get to go out into the woods more this autumn and make another video.
And don't forget, Mushroom Wonderland is everywhere as long as you go out there.
Blowing up. Yeah, Mushroom Wonderland is in your own backyard. But make sure you get educated. Buy a book from Daniel. Go to mushroaming.com. Make sure to subscribe to Mushroom Wonderland and go to mushroom-wonderland.com. Get some merch.
I sign everything you get from my webpage and put happily your name in there.
Anyways, thanks for joining. We'll see you on the next episode. Much love.